Welcome to the Startup Leaders Show, where we learn lessons from leading startup founders and executives. I'm your host, Lisa Dreher. I'm really excited to introduce our guest for today, Dave Bettinger. He is the CEO of SpaceLink. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Thank you, Lisa. It's great to be here with you.
Absolutely. So maybe you can start by just giving us a little bit of background on yourself and SpaceLink.
Great. I would love to. I am an engineer at heart. My whole life, I knew I was going to head into engineering. So it was no surprise when I, after graduate school, took a job at Hughes Network Systems out of school and learned all of the great things about satellite. And now I'm entering my 30th year in the satellite communications realm. And it's been a great time to be in satellite and a great time to be an engineer, and have slowly changed to a couple of different companies. From Hughes, I ended up being one of the co-founders of a company that became iDirect, and had a great time there. I spent 18 years there as their chief technology officer. After getting the startup bug, that's what drove me there. And then after that, I got the LEO bug. I wanted to go see what was going on in the exciting world of LEO, and then ended up becoming one of the founders of OneWeb, and spent 7 years there. And then I got a great opportunity to join this new company that we set up last year, and to advance my career and become a CEO for the first time. So it's been really great, and SpaceLink has been a fantastic and really my most exciting endeavor so far.
Wow, what an amazing background. So tell me a little bit about SpaceLink. What are you guys doing?
So SpaceLink is a satellite operator. We are looking to become, we're launching basically a communications infrastructure for space. We're a space data relay play. We see exciting things happening in space, especially in low Earth orbit. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of those applications that are going up don't have a way to communicate back to the ground very easily or efficiently, and they end up having to wait till they pass over a ground station somewhere. We're building a MEO network of a small constellation of satellites in MEO that will allow the data to relay from those LEO customers back to the Earth through our MEO satellites. So it's an infrastructure play.
Interesting. Wow. So, what's your launch plan? When do you think you'll start launching satellites?
We are out procuring our satellites right now. So we've finalized our architecture, built a great team. We're up over about 30 people, I think, at this point, and we expect to be in service by mid 2024.
Wow. That is really exciting. So with your background and everything that you've seen, and now with SpaceLink, what are some of the trends that you think are really kind of driving this requirement?
There's a couple of different things. Space offers a very unique a unique environment. First of all, there's microgravity or no gravity at all, practically. There's a vast amount of vacuum up there. And third of all, it offers perspective. You can't see the Earth from Earth. And so those things together actually drive a lot of the applications that are moving towards space. You have things like in manufacturing, things that can't be done in high gravity, like new drugs being developed. They could be done a lot easier in microgravity situations. Taking pictures of Earth, so Earth observation, synthetic aperture radar. There is just a myriad of different applications that are driving the growth. What's enabling it is really lower launch costs. We've seen launch costs drop by an order of magnitude in the past 10 years easily. And that's allowing things to get to space. And all these different smaller companies and even larger companies that have ideas and applications are now able to do that in low Earth orbit. And that's really driving that. We're going to be providing effectively the Wi-Fi network in space that will allow them to always be in communications.
Got it. Got it. So why MEO and not LEO?
So that's a very good question. Thank you. The benefit of being we're at about 14,000 kilometers in MEO with a very small number of satellites. We'll have initially 4 satellites, but we only technically need 3. We can see any LEO at any altitude in any orbit inclination all the time. So it gives us a complete view and the ability to offer continuous communications. So that the benefit really is being above the LEO satellites allows them to always be in sight of our MEO constellation. And then, of course, our secure ground stations are always in sight of our MEO.
Got it. Wow. Okay. And how many ground stations are you going to need to support that?
Initially, we're going to start off with just a couple. Actually, a couple different regions. In each region, we'll have multiple ground stations. We're utilizing, Q and V band downlink, which to get the availability at 99.9 like we want to, we have to have a couple of alternate ground stations to be able to cover that. So we'll deploy initially in the United States. And then we have an Australian parent, so we're going to be heading to Australia with our ground segment, and then we'll continue to look at sites from there as we need to increase our capacity. The benefit of our system is that no matter where the LEOs are, and no matter which of one of our MEO satellites they're talking to, we have optical intersatellite links between our MEO satellites that allows us to get the data back to a gateway in the United States or a gateway within whatever sovereign boundaries our customers want.
Got it. Wow, fascinating. So maybe we can dig a little bit deeper into some of this, but the reason we invited you here today was to talk a little bit about your business experience and what has really helped you become successful over the years. So I really just want to start with a basic question, which is, what have been the biggest keys to your business success so far?
It's a very interesting question. I look back and I think, as an engineer and loving to get my hands dirty, a lot of people can fall into an engineering career where they never really exit the engineering side of it. So the biggest thing for me, I think, looking back, was really understanding how you fit within the larger organization and understand how your customers are using your products that you're building without being narrow and focusing just directly on that. So learning how a business operates, all of the different aspects of that, and then learning ultimately how you're serving your end customers really led me to greater and greater responsibility, and then ultimately the role that I'm at now.
Got it. Got it. So when you think about just all the years in business, all these 30 years in the satellite industry, what has been the most valuable business lesson you've learned?
I would have to say patience. I think patience was probably the biggest one, and I'll go back to a couple examples. When I was early on at iDirect, again, it was a very small startup back in '96 when we founded it, and we had a couple of troubling years where it was trying to get money from investors, trying to get product out the door, trying to get customers to buy the product. It was really an interesting time, and I think a lot of people may have given up in that scenario. And the people that I was with really stuck with it. And when things looked bleak, especially after September 11th, 2001, our funding was drying up, and we were still not quite there yet. But with just a little bit of patience, we ended up turning that business around significantly. And then, by 2003, we were cash flow positive. And then 2005, we basically sold the company and to Singapore Technologies Engineering, and it's been a fantastic success ever since. So I think I saw some of my colleagues back then get a little bit nervous and say, okay, this isn't going to work. I need to go get a stable job. I stuck with it, and ultimately iDirect became an extremely successful company. Same thing happened at OneWeb. It was some difficult times, and they went through a bankruptcy last year, but they came out the other side. And so I think with a little perseverance and patience, that would be the thing that I would suggest people in other areas of life, but especially in business, try and find.
Yes, patience. Patience. Yes, we could all benefit from that. Something I'm not very good at, so I can probably learn some patience. So when you think about, knowing what you know now, is there something that you would have told yourself early on when you first started out?
Interesting. Probably, probably I would have told myself that Dave, you'll love the startup atmosphere. So I joined a big company out of college and really learned a lot there, and learned, cut my teeth in engineering there. But really, my passion ever since has been small companies, and starting something from scratch, and building that. So I think that would have been, and then telling myself to be patient and get in a position to go after those types of opportunities, take chances. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but a lot of times it may.
Yeah, yeah. When you think back, is there anything that you would have done different if you were to start all over again?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I never intended to get into satellite. I didn't really know much that about it. I wasn't one of those kids that stared at the stars all the time and said, "Boy, I really want to go to space." I really still don't want to go to space. I want my satellite to go to space, but it seems like a lonely place up there. So I ended up, basically just falling into the satellite industry with one of the leaders in satellite communications, Hughes, back in the early '90s. Was a great time to be there. And people were saying that satellite was on its last legs then, and by the end of the '90s, of course, fiber was going to be everywhere, and satellite was going to get further relegated. It's done nothing but grow. So I really have been fortunate in all things in my career, and really don't have any second guesses about anything.
That's really amazing. So when you think about one of the things that we hear a lot from leaders is that as their companies grow, every now and again they'll hit these plateaus and they kind of have to figure out a way to push beyond those plateaus. So thinking back, whether it's iDirect or one of the other organizations that you started or worked within, did you find that that was an issue? And if so, how did you push past those plateaus?
Um, iDirect would probably be the best example for that. So without a doubt, when we turned the company around in the early 2000s, and there were some other things going on in the world that really drove both the government as well as the commercial side, and oil and gas was taking off at that time, and it really led to a lot of quick growth. And that continued for a number of different years. But after about 10 years of that growth, it was really difficult to go and sell equipment in the equipment game, all to the same users, or try and grow the market or grab market share from someone else. And so one of the things that we did back then is we started to look at our ecosystem. We started to look and say really what's important to us and what are the trends in the market, and really offer new capabilities and new technologies that were going to be important to what we saw as the trending market. Of course, back then it was mobility, getting onto ships and the oil and gas world, and ultimately onto airplanes, and then doing the same thing for militaries was really important to try and get to the next level. And then right before I had left, back in the mid to 2010s, we were in the middle of a large contract, which was fantastic for iDirect, and that was being able to support the Global Express program from Inmarsat. And so those types of things, I think you have to really continue to reinvest in yourself, and be able to find new things that you can offer your customer base without really ever having to diversify and go into a completely new business. That was something I was never in favor of, just doing things better the way that we were doing them.
Right. So you kind of alluded to something in that answer, which are partnerships. And I guess maybe can you dig into that a little bit deeper and talk about the importance of partnerships, and then also maybe how to go about forming those relationships?
Yes. Well, partnerships, especially in the companies that I've been involved with, have been extremely important. With iDirect and even with OneWeb, and then now especially at SpaceLink, we're not always going to be selling directly to the end customer. So you really have to establish the partnerships and the different verticals that you're trying to go after. And in the case of iDirect, we were looking at, okay, who knows what they're doing in the oil and gas industry, Schlumberger and other companies, Stratos in Houston. So we really partnered very well with them to be able to allow them to offer what their end customers were asking for, and we were just part of the value chain. So really understanding your value chain and establishing partnerships, northbound and southbound, to try and grow your importance and your stickiness within a particular vertical or industry, really.
Yeah. What has been the most successful means of creating those partnerships? How have you done that?
I think the most successful partnerships have always been something that have been win-win on both sides,
Yeah.
right? So, what I would say is, if you have a partner that knows an industry very well, a lot of times they're resellers, or they're specialized resellers that know a particular industry, and you're trying to get a product into that world. If you can give them something that their competitors don't have, and start to establish a foothold with those partnerships, and let them be successful, as well as you're being successful because you're selling, in our case, we were selling equipment into them. You end up with a very much, 1+1 = 4, or 1+1 = 5 situation, where you become known for being able to do that in that industry, and then you have all of the other potential partnerships that can grow out of that, and the other sales growth. So I think that'd be an example that I would give.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to end with one last question, and I think you may have alluded to some of these things already, but so I'm really interested in your answer. And that is, if you could make one prediction about the future, and that could be business or satellite industry or technology, what would that prediction be?
Good question. Okay. Um, I'm in the space industry, so I'm gonna use that as my prediction. I predict that we are really at the cusp of a huge growth in not only space investment, which we've seen a huge uptake in the past couple of years, but really a whole new space economy that is going to grow out of, the unique things that you can do in space, as well as lowering costs, and lowering, Moore's law, lowering technology costs, and the launch costs, everything that comes with it. I think we're going to see more and more applications, and I predict space will become more central to our global economy, as opposed to some of the relegated aspects that satellite has served in the past.
Ah, well, I like that prediction. So
I think we all do in our industry.
absolutely. Well, as that prediction comes to pass more and more, I think it's already headed in that direction. But as it comes to pass more, we'll have you back on the show, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit more.
Well, excellent, Lisa. I look forward to it, and we are working very hard to get our system launched, and can't wait to be able to talk more about the success that we achieve.
Great. Thanks so much, Dave.
Thank you, Lisa.